Carolyn Falk and Steve Bryson, everyone. There's an encore if you like. But thank you so much for coming out and performing tonight. I really appreciate it. And I was curious to know about how did you get set up? How did you meet each other? And how did you come up with the set together? I was wondering if one of you could give me some insight.
Hi. So first, wanted to thank Piqued and congratulations to the 5-year. I'm so honored to be a part of it, and knowing you for these many years, it's an honor. So I wanted to speak about basically when I'm playing electronic music, it's almost like I'm handwriting. It's a totally different thing. I'm not thinking about materials. I'm actually just carving the space. And this is, to me, the distance that I have, and the distance between the psyche and the exoplanets. It feels like, culminated into this point where I'm exploring now these inner spaces, and it was interesting because when you're in your own world, you explore that, but then there's a whole other piece of it when you're exploring someone else's world. You step into their setups, and then you've got this just almost like a Zen approach, where you're just you have something you have nothing you don't know anything about, and you just approach it with everything you have, and then you compose with all these new things, and it gives you all these new ideas coming back into your studio. And so it's kind of this circular thing, but it seems like every time Steve and I get together just to do improv, we just reach these depths. Like every time it's but I was I guess how we met was Steve can also explain that we had a mutual friend, and I. Steve is an astronomer, and I immediately wanted to know what's out there. I think he introduced himself as as an astronomer searching for planets. So I said, he's in reality, like he's not dreaming. I want to know what he knows. So, that's one part, but it just seemed like when you put those kind of minds together, like the experimental, and then you've got the universe. What can you do with that? But I'll hand it to Steve, and you can also talk about the universe.
Yeah, well, I certainly want to reinforce basically what Carolyn said, that we're about exploring spaces that we've never been to before. And I've been exploring these spaces since 1974 on my own, and I've always felt a little dissatisfied. And when I tried to play with people in it, that didn't ever quite work. But then when I met Carolyn, it was like, she's what I'd been looking for all my life. And this just happened we got together to play together for the first time last fall. And it was just amazing that, just an example of when she's talking about going into uncharted territory and just going for it. I have a sizable modular system, and she wanted to play it. And I said, yes, I've set this up just for you. And do you know your way around? Do you want me to explain to you? She says, no, I'll just twiddle knobs. And it's like, okay. But she twiddled the right knobs and went to places I'd never known how to go to. And really, there's a way that when we're playing together, we make space for each other and we listen to each other that I've never experienced before, where it feels like we're both going out there, and we both know where there is, except we don't know what we're going to find there until we get there, and then we start finding the same, or finding the same thing. We find the same landscape, find the same feeling and the same expression, and just do it together with no planning, it just happens. It's to me a really miraculous thing that I've been looking for all my life, and I'm very appreciative that Carolyn wants to play with me.
Thank you for the explanation. That was really wonderful to hear how you two have inspired each other. That's really, and thank you so much for performing it here. Have you performed anywhere else? This is
our debut. This is our debut.
Thank you for making Piqued your debut performance. I really appreciate it.
I also have a CYRNAI album coming up too, so that's okay. So as I was saying, so I immediately, it was like a more of a split-second meeting, and it was, but I was just really wanting to know, and then we just started exchanging about, planets and things like that, and I think he's an expert at that. So but it seems like we're tapping into each other's psyche. That's what I'm thinking. Because I feel like I'm tapping into the psyche of the universe that he's studied. And so it's like I'm going into it. And I think maybe he's tapping into the same way. He's getting into my psyche.
Well, I'll just say the universe I'm tapping into with Carolyn is way bigger than the one I study in my day job.
So anyway, so I guess, Steve put together some modular things. You want to talk about that, but I have this really funny gadget called S-Box, which is just a ghost detector. So I look for ghosts, and he looks for planets. So I feel like it's the same mystery, or the same maybe, it's a similar thing. So sometimes I just build up material, and then I feed it, and then it just goes into the channels in the mixer or whatever. I have an embodime, the light, because I think I was using Stencil Morph before, and so now I'm using kind of this more live playable touchpad with MPE. There's some feeding into Ableton. There is some choices there that can blend. And so I try to do simple setup as much as I can, but all the work really happens kind of behind the scenes. We have, you want to describe your setup? Because he kind of said.
So, based on our improvisations, looking at the knobs she turned, that really worked at my place. I just extracted a little skiff with some modules that were in the same vein. So, should I list them? Do you know what they are? So, it's just going from left to right. There's a Synthesis Technologies dual morphing low frequency oscillator for complicated modulation controls. And then what? And then we have a Ian Fritz Hypester, which is one of my favorite things. It's based on mathematical chaos and exploits these things called strange attractors, which I love because they're almost periodic, but never quite periodic, so you get these very organic kind of modulations out of it, though we were actually running it here at audio frequencies so that you have an harmonic thing with basically the spectrum of the waveform has nothing to do with the fundamental frequency, and so it makes some very interesting sounds. And then we have a Synthesis Technologies E352 Cloud Generator, which is one of those things that spreads out many sounds around a central note. Carolyn makes great use of that. And then what's the next thing? The Telharmonic, which just does wild, interesting harmonic things. And then a low-pass filter, because you always have to have a low-pass filter somewhere in there, which was taking us, that was, the signal from the cloud generator was coming straight out and also through the low-pass filter. And then a Spectre. I forget who makes it. I can't read it over there. Anyone remember who makes a Spectre? Audio Damage? Yeah, Audio Damage Spectre, which just freezes the spectral structure of a sound and then lets you do things to it. And I just knew that no matter what knob she turned, it was going to do wonderful things with a setup like that. So there was no thinking. She didn't, she saw it for the first time a couple weeks ago. I mean, no thinking on my part, I should say. She saw it for the first time a couple weeks ago. So, and it's worked really well.
Well, that sounds. Thank you for explaining the modular setup. That sounds really cool. That last one you told me about, I haven't heard about that one. That one's really fascinating. The Spectre. Yeah. That sounds really cool. Could you tell us a little bit about your theremin, actually?
Should I talk about what a theremin is? Does everybody know what a theremin is? Anyone don't know what a theremin is? Okay, so you all know what a theremin is. So this is a nice theremin. It's a Clarivox that Moog put out a couple of years ago in celebration of Clara Rockmore's 100th birthday. Clara Rockmore was one of the great early musicians on the theremin. I've been very fortunate that I've been studying with Carolina Eick, who is the current great theremin player in the world, as far as I'm concerned. She's out of Berlin, has done many albums, and has had many orchestral pieces composed for her. And she's taught me both how to play and compositional techniques, which is really exciting. I don't know. What do you want to know? It made a lot of noise.
Could you tell us a little bit about musicians?
Oh, like how it works?
Yeah.
Can you hold this? Do we have sound? Okay, we have, can you turn down all the other things? We have a little bit from the modular there. There you go. Let's get the lay down. So the antenna on the right, well, the whole idea is this instrument senses my hand through, my physical body is affecting the capacitance of the air. And the antennas are picking that up. It's sort of the same thing with the old-fashioned TVs. When you would wave your arm around the TV, the signal would get better sometimes. So this was invented by Leon Theremin just over 100 years ago. And the right-hand antenna controls pitch. The left-hand antenna down here controls volume. And that's it. You just have to put the right hand in the right place and the left hand in the right place and play stuff, right? Now, because you're not actually touching anything, that turns out to be really hard to do. And I'm very comfortable in this kind of playing. But if I try to play scale, I could tell it's not actually tuned at the moment. It fell out of tune. But that's much more challenging. Yeah, it's way out. If I were... Oh, you know why it's way out? This guy here.
I'm the problem.
Yeah, any people standing close to it, we're affecting your capacitance too. So, it's really messes things up. But anyway, playing real music is a real challenge, and the people who can do that have my infinite respect. I'm working really hard to get to that point, but I'm still a little ways from it. It's a very difficult instrument to play, is what I'll just summarize it as.
Thank you very much for explaining the theremin a little bit, Steve. It makes a lot of sense to hear how it's controlled.
Well, I do want to add that through my life I've been exploring lunatic fringe musical interfaces. I've tried all kinds of things, and I've settled that the theremin is my favorite, most expressive controller for things. It also has voltage outs, so I could control synthesizers, though I'm not doing that today. But it's absolutely my favorite, most expressive controller. My second favorite is the Akai, the breath controller, the Iwi USB that I played for a short time. I love that for the feeling of the breath. So I'm primarily a keyboard player, but these two instruments are my actual favorites.
Thank you. And Killian J, do you have some more to add to the performance aspect or some higher out there ideas?
I think it's we hardly talk about our personal journeys when we're using electronic. I mean, we have electronics, but I think it's always important to put yourself into it, and it's kind of a form of documentary for me. I mean, when so I always think that the most original things come out of that, and your own journey comes out of that, and you learn a lot from just looking at it sort of like expressing your your get your psychology or your I look at it really differently these days, and not as much as instruments, but how it tells its story, and I'm always improving the its capacity both ways, and it's hard to explain.
I'll just say that I'm pretty good with words, but words are irrelevant to what we do, I think is a fair thing to say. We don't talk much about what we do, we just do it, and then we go, wow. And it's just wonderful to have a partner who's comfortable with that. I was telling Carolyn earlier today that one thing that's, I think, very different about us, in my experience, is we're just fearless. We just, we're not worried about how it's going to sound, and then it sounds so much better than if we did, I'm sure.
Well, I want to thank you again both for coming out and playing Piqued 5th year anniversary. It was my pleasure to have you. It was an amazing adventure you took us on. I took the time to actually listen to your album, Space Time Canvas. You can find it on bandcamp.com, or you can buy it right here for $15 from Carolyn. And I had this experience while I was walking earlier today of being on a rocket ship, watching Twin Peaks Season 3, and exploring the cosmos. It was a fun journey. It was good.
Can we put that on the blurb on the jacket?
Okay. Again, thank you so much for coming out and playing tonight. I really appreciate it. Are there any more questions from the audience for Steve or Carolyn? Oh, yes.
Hello. That was a beautiful and moving performance. My question for each of you is, how long have you been exploring music on your musical journeys, and maybe what was the first instrument or place that started?
Well, I can give the quick answer. I started piano when I was 9, and I got my first synthesizer in 1974. So.
Scary question. Seriously, that really opens up a lot. No, I was doing punk music, in 1982. I mean, I don't know if people know. I mean, my father built a drum machine in 1976 or something. It was the Piqued drum machine, and so I was exposed to drum machines when I was 9, and so about he was the first person I saw building gear. So and then he started leaving things in the living room and just guitars, or like he built a synthesizer. He was just like leaving it there, and then I just discovered it, and I didn't know what a 4-track was, but he had one there. So it was just there, and so I started plugging things and recording the tape recorders, like trying to get a 4-track, but actually he had one. So, and then I figured. So, but what I ended up doing was, like, for my first album, Charred Blossoms, when I was it was like 17 or something, is I didn't know when to stop overdubbing. Because you have 4 tracks, and I end up getting 16 out of them or something, right? And then I didn't really have reels, so I had to steal his Carpenter reels, his pre, blues or whatever reel stuff, and I had to erase it so I could get tape. But I didn't want to cut tape because I didn't know how to put it. So anyway, I had to, I just, that's how I just made these experiments, because I didn't know how to cut tape. So, and I didn't have a mixer board because I didn't know what a mixing board was. So I just used a microphone to get EQ by sticking it different angles of the room to get EQ. So, and then, later on people thought it was experimental, but actually that's how I record it. It was, and whatever at the time. Actually, I didn't have any references at all. Like, it was just suburbs and rock bands around me, and there were no women at all. Like, even in bands that I was exposed to. So I didn't know. Like, really, I was like, it was 1982 or 3, pretty much. And I would stick like effects into those drum machines and into different effects and mic the amp, and then get, I took over the living room of my parents' house. And I don't know why how they let me do it. I just took it over, and it was like that. The whole living room was all wires and all the instruments, and then that's how I created my first album. So that it's been a journey. So it's a real potent question that you're asking, but it's that experiment came first versus trying to emulate anything, because it was. I was mainly a writer and a illustrator. So that was first, and so that's what I was trying to express before, was that when I do electronic music, it's like writing. And so that kind of encapsulate the story. I really like that question, because I could really go on about it. But yeah, I've been through it, like, in bands, and then like industrial bands, and so it's been quite a long way. So, but it seems like with space music, now it's like another, like, frontier. Like, it never stops. That's why I kind of took that angle today, because it's like, there's a milestone point or whatever. It's just this post, where you get to this point, and then it's like a one little facet, and it sounds like a psyche. It sounds like the sound of your mind. So, but it comes in so many forms. So that's just like a sliver. And then, but I love all the other stuff too, like dance beats and like techno and stuff, or I love all that stuff too. But in combining them and different things. So, but I wanted to express it today. It's just because it's like symbolic of this path that I think, as people who play synthesizers, we're kind of all in this. When you're going through it and you're playing it, it's like you are not going through that journey, that moment, and it's experience. And actually, what it is it's found experience. So versus found sound, it's found experience. that's what I think, like, we're performing, or we're doing when we press our synthesizers. We're trying to get that experience as artists and expressing, that moment, expressing the past, or however, but whatever that catharsis is, it's really important to have. And it's amazing the journey has come to the point where there's a synth shop, on Mission Street. There's a synthesizer store. My first synthesizer was an Moog Opus 3. It was like 1970 something. It was just like in a shopping mall. It's like a Moog in a shopping mall. But I can really talk forever about this stuff because I've had such a huge journey going through. So I have 100 albums, by the way. Memoir or sound plug. I've cataloged about 100 albums of like experimental stuff, so you can find it. Thank you for that question.
Thank you. Just one thing. Okay. I want to add just one thing about my musical journey, and that is to thank Carolyn for inviting me to take part in this, because Carolyn got the invitation for this gig, and she said, "Steve, you want to do it?" And I was like, "Oh," and I want to thank you very much.
Let's have another round of applause for Carolyn Falk and Steve Bryson, please. What an amazing set. Thank you. Now we're about to wrap up our show for Piqued 5-year anniversary and just have a few notes before we go. I want to thank everyone who's ever been on the show, which is going back 5 years in many shows. So in no particular order, I want to thank Matt Bidoff, Musical Fungus, Fredrickson, a.k.a. Density and Time, Scott, All That's Gone, Lenny Hamaker, Anti-Negative, Andrew Belt, Mark Letzner, Lachlan Fletcher, Evan Boswell, Nathan Moody, Eki Shola, Steve E. Synth, Alpha Stare, Need for Storms, M.0, Clark Harding, J. Stitch, Dylan 909, Joshua Farr, R. Benny, Dr. Wreck, Shipwreck Detective, Betts, Amy Lee, Carolyn Falk, Steve Bryson, Brian and Betsy of Mission Synths, Chantel DeFelice, A.M. Filipkowski of Data Cult Audio, Tim Held of Positive Modcast, Eric Needham of Needham Woodworks, Your Opponent, Chibalba, Particle Fields, Johan Resmond, Forrestine, Sugar, Anthony Regalia, Sheena Dom, Sensario, Bo Flores, DSKO, 6502, Stu J, Thierry Halwak, Pure Phase, Visual Witchcraft, Eden Gray, Encounters, Woke Ass Messiah, Peter Nybor, Malarkey, Sign Mountain, H. Anton Rial, Dirty Bill, Sam Berlux, James Siegler, Midi Noose, CK Sample, Dravarsi, Tanuki Spidercat, Frank Martin, Midi Scripps, Paul M. Olive, Marianne Hadonia, Red Stripe Down, Tim Thompson, Fictional Animal, Audio Terrorist, Censor, Chris Achi, Intafan, Chad Magnat, Shoemaker, Futura, Jordan Michael Francis, Particle Fields, Veer, Wabi Sabi, Material, and a special thanks to Richard Hogben for continuing to do this journey with me, which I couldn't do without him. Amazing guy. Thank you, everybody, for making Piqued 5th anniversary so amazing. Thank you, everybody.